I wasn't going to make a video or publish one at least until my The Evil Within Part 2 review was published. And if you must know, as of this recording, all that is left for me to do is the rendering and basically adding the end credits. Yeah, I think I'm gonna add some end credits, but yeah, that video is pretty much done. So if all goes according to plan, expect this Evil Within Part 2 review in this coming week, starting the 18th of March 2024. Today is the 15th of March 2024. But what is going on, everyone? This is your boy Tanveer Said, the Bengal Dragon. Make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and bell notification buttons, as all your support would really help this legally blind YouTube content creator to remain motivated to continue making a variety of different type of videos in this channel, and through the YouTube algorithm would really help this channel grow. Okay, I came across this narrative about Resident Evil 5, and I sort of predicted that this discussion will come up, especially given this day and age. However, in the comment section that was shut down, and I didn't think much of it, I thought maybe I was overreacting, but lo and behold, well, here we are talking about this. Okay, and I'm gonna be a little bit all over the place because I came across certain other pieces of news and video as well. I might sprinkle bits of those here, but the main topic is Resident Evil 5 racist? If you must know, Resident Evil 5 takes place in some country in Africa, I think Western Africa, as if, I don't know, for some reason, people keep ignoring the north of Africa and the east of Africa and even parts of the south of Africa where there are many countries in a lot of their narrative games. So, Resident Evil 5, the BSAA, Chris Redfield, along with Sheva Alomar, go in and basically take care of Wesker and his assistant, Excella, I think her name is. Right. And given that this takes place in Africa, a lot of the infected people or the infected beings are basically of African origin. Okay, in 2009, this wasn't an issue. Why is it an issue now, is my question. Um, if you really must know my opinion, absolutely not. It's not racist. Isn't Sheva Alomar also African? Isn't the aren't the people helping you also African in this in Resident Evil 5, along with one of the DLCs, if I'm not mistaken? Aren't they also African? I mean, it's a Resident Evil game, so they have to focus on Chris, Jill, and Wesker. Because this is a conclusion to the rivalry between Chris and Wesker. So you can't have a game that does not primarily focus on their rivalry. And this whole narrative is so stupid to me. See, someone else brought up that they did this in Resident Evil 4, a similar thing where Leon goes to a village in Spain and takes care of a lot of the infected Spaniard creatures. Or Resident Evil 6, a similar thing happens in China. Why aren't they being talked about that much? In fact, Resident Evil 4 Remake, why didn't people talk about this so much? I mean, I kind of have a theory. I don't know if this is true, but maybe they see it, or these, as Urza Titanium once put it, anti-gamers see it as a colonizing power dealing with another colonizing power, or something along those lines, instead of a colonizing power dealing with a group of people that they have oppressed, hundreds of years ago, and in some extent according to their logic, are still oppressing. And I mean, to be brutally honest, um, that are continuing to oppress, if you actually look at the narrative, if you actually do your research, there is not a whole lot, but there is a decent amount of merit to that argument. But this is a video game, people. This is a video game. And if you must know, Wesker is the one, the protagonist, no, the main antagonist is the one causing all these problems. And Chris Redfield is going and basically taking care of this other person who is also Caucasian and is exploiting the resources of Africa and basically, taking care of him, ending him basically. So, shouldn't that be celebrated as a good thing? And like for me, this is not what I look for in a game. Like to see, uh, like whether or not this game is, uh, you know, talking about racism or something like that. I'm like, bro, I'm playing a game. I want to enjoy it. Okay. Yeah. Do I want certain groups to be represented? Absolutely. Absolutely. Up until today, I didn't know that there were other blind people in gaming. And this is one I overlooked, Hawkeye. My problem is that most of them are probably not voiced by by blind voice actors. I know why I said that. Like, I mean, Christopher Judge and T.C. Carson, when it comes to black voice actors, Christopher Judge and T.C. Carson, man, they voice Kratos. Kratos, the person with the greatest game story ever told. Ever. And they were voiced by two people whose work cannot be surpassed, in my opinion. So, yeah, but when it comes to blind people voicing, I'm like, I still have an issue with that TV series C. I'm like, they put Jason Momoa in it. I'm like, listen, don't you have blind actors? Don't you have blind actresses? Why can't you put them there? Like Daredevil, that Echo series. Yeah. Okay, forget about Echo, like, being a disabled person. Daredevil, why isn't he voiced or acted by a legally blind person? No, the diversity narrative is going in another direction. It's going in the direction of mostly race, gender, ethnicity representation, and people with disabilities are left behind again and again. And this is one of the biggest points of frustration that I have with the entire media, with the entire entertainment industry. Okay, now am I like um I am a little bit aware of this Baby Inc. thing that's coming out, Gamergate 2 or something, whatever. I came across one of the articles published by one of its defenders, and I saw an interview on Steve's channel. First of all, this person gave this indication that representation and accessibility are pretty much the same thing. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Representation and accessibility are different things. Accessibility is whether or not the game is set up in a way where people with disabilities can play it. Representation is if they see their type of people, the communities that the gamers represent, whether they're being represented in the games. They're pretty much completely different. In fact, accessibility is even more severe. Okay, let me give you an example. Okay, if you go into a restaurant, okay, and this is something that actually happened with me last month. If you go into a restaurant and all of a sudden you've been going there for so many years, all of a sudden someone says that, oh no, you're blind, you have to make an appointment before coming here, and it has to be well in advance before you come here. That is accessibility. Okay, representation is if I go into the restaurant and I see some of the people who work there are also legally blind. That is representation. Okay, and when it comes to accessibility, I'm sorry, I'm almost unwavering on this. Okay, I've I've pretty much lived all my life as a person with legal blindness. So I am no, and I grew up in the East. All right, I am very well aware of the difference between representation and accessibility. Yes, there is a little bit of overlap, but the differences are vast. My concern with Resident Evil 5 is that is this game going to be accessible? Can I actually play the game? Because if you look at the, you know, most of the games right now, most of them are not accessible. Which brings me to this whole Baby Inc. fiasco. Listen, should there be more representation in games? Yes, there should be. However, are the instances of representation being done properly? 99% no. Because a lot of times you see it done in a forceful way where the people are there just for being there. Okay, and one of my bigger concerns are with the swapping. Swapping of different famous characters based on their cultural backgrounds or something. Listen, a game like Mortal Kombat 5, okay, that came out in 2002, okay, Midway, when there was a Midway, did not get credit for this. Kenshi was a blind swordsman who was a playable character in the game. Okay, where were your cheers when they finally included a blind combatant in a fighting game? Okay, in Mortal Kombat X, Kung Jin, I believe he's attracted to the same sex. Was this an issue? Was this a big talking point? I don't recall it. In fact, I didn't care. Because they were not shoving it down anyone's throats. Okay, and there is a huge narrative disparity when it comes to diversity. Okay, there is diversity and then there is corporate level diversity, like what the system wants you to think. Okay, I'll give you a very good example of this. The wrestler Crazy Steve, many of you don't know this, he is visually impaired. In fact, I was surprised to find out that some of the people within the industry didn't know this, that he was visually impaired. Okay, and I was waiting, I'm like, how come Impact Wrestling, like now owned by a Canadian company, didn't make a big deal out of this? How many visually impaired people do you see in pro wrestling? Instead, they made a very big deal out of Tessa Blanchard winning the world title. And kudos to Tessa Blanchard, all right? But how I see it is that a disabled person, a visually impaired person, has to wait. Maybe the system will finally say that, oh, wait, okay, now let's focus on people with disabilities. Any wonder why the employment rate for people with disabilities is so low? Any wonder why? and this is why, like, on the other side of this entire Gamergate argument, I'm sorry, I have to call this narrative out as well. It seems some people are taking what someone said out of context and just blowing it out of proportion just for views and monetary purposes on YouTube. And I find this entire fiasco to be counterproductive. I'm like, listen, what do you guys want? Do you guys want a good game with competent? I keep saying this in my comment section, in the comment section of all these videos, competent diversity, or do you just want to keep arguing with each other? Like, I see this as a result of a lot of miscommunication and misunderstandings. And given all my time I've spent in psychology, I have figured something out, that a lot of the problems in the world from a micro level, as in, between two people, in family members and whatnot, to a macro level, when it comes to different governments, happen due to miscommunication. And if miscommunication is allowed to linger, left unchecked and unresolved, then unfortunately conflict is inevitable. And no one wants conflict. Everyone wants a good resolution, a peaceful resolution. Okay. So bringing it back to Resident Evil 5. Capcom, you have to be careful about this. Okay? And this is perhaps one of the signs that maybe Capcom will make Resident Evil 1, 0, or Code Veronica next. Because they're waiting for this fire to die down. Maybe. But look at Dead or Alive 6. They did this amount of pandering to an extent. No one talks about Dead or Alive anymore. They actually did go broke. They had so many failures in terms of storytelling, in terms of, some parts of gameplay and whatnot, and presentation, coupled with ridiculous microtransactions that, in some instances, you end up paying maybe more than twice the amount for the actual game to unlock everything. No one talks about Dead or Alive anymore. Capcom, you have to be careful. What are you going to do? Are you going to release Resident Evil 5 that takes place in Africa, or are you going to switch up the location? Either way, I don't have a problem with it, okay? I see this as just a lot of arguing without actually coming together and trying to come to a mutual compromise and a mutual understanding. Okay, like, the people on the other side, who are supporting this Gamergate, all this stuff, okay? And you're seeing a lot of people, influential people, jump on this Gamergate bandwagon just to, get some clout. Just like they're doing with a lot of these movie failures, these Disney movie failures, they're jumping on the bandwagon to get some clout. Not all of them, but some of them are. I'm like, people, just sit together, okay? Talk to average people, okay? Just talk to them, see what their concerns are, bring up your own concerns. Let us have an understanding. Let us have a civil discourse. I'm sure if we just talk it out, we can actually come to a mutual understanding where everyone benefits. Okay? And before I leave, I came across this other narrative as well. And here's my 2 cents on this. Okay. Um, a lot of people, they really start jumping up and down and, you know, going on this online bandwagon parades when they see a voluptuous woman finally coming back to a game or something like that. I'm like, really? That's why you play a game? To look at a fictional character's assets? Really? Are you guys that desperate? Are you guys that isolated from society? Come on, man. Come on, people. You got this is 2024. Okay, and by the way, do you remember there was a time, like before I was born, there was a time where over sexualization of women was considered a bad thing? What, people weren't manly back then? People did not have babies back then? People did not flirt with women back then? When over sexualization of anything was considered wrong? Now we're getting back to this where, like, okay, let us tone it down a little bit. Let's not sexualize our women that much, our gaming women that much. Okay, let's focus more on the game. As for me, I'm all for that. I'm not saying make the women ugly. Yeah, make them attractive. Make them, like, realistically attractive. Yeah. But the primary focus of the game is not eye candy. Okay? There are other avenues for eye candy. People play games for games. Okay? Because they want to be entertained. Okay, and another piece of information, like I said, I'm winging this, or I didn't say it, but yeah, I'm freestyling it. Okay, one of the games that the Baby Inc. group people worked on apparently is God of War, the 2018, and there's this narrative about forcing DEI. I'm like, wait a minute, I played God of War from beginning to end. For me, I consider that the greatest game story ever told. What? What woke agenda are you talking about? They didn't do anything. I'm like, what? You're focusing on Kratos' character development? I'm like, wait, that's a bad thing? Like, how is that a bad thing? You had 6 games where Kratos was doing hack and slash. How many more games do you want? I mentioned this in my Valhalla review. Kratos is not Needles Kane. David Jaffe can scream all he wants that he doesn't like it. No. Even David Jaffe has to realize this, and if he doesn't, that's his shortcoming. Kratos has always been a deep character. What 2018 and Ragnarok did was expand on that depth and evolve it. How is that a bad thing? If the Baby Inc. people worked on that, kudos to them. They were part of the greatest game story ever told. As far as the other games, I did not play them, or I don't recall playing them, so I cannot comment because it will be inappropriate for me to comment. But yeah, my conclusion is that a lot of this comes from a compilation of misunderstandings, and some of the people who are consultants, some of them, it seems, no confirmation, but it seems they are extremely politicized themselves, and they are extremely biased. Those are not the type of people you want as consultants. Okay, like this Alan Wake 2, the main protagonist is an African American woman. I'm like, so? Is the game good or not? I'm not playing a game, to get a political message. Who plays a game for a political message? And yeah, as far as I'm concerned, no, Resident Evil 5, I don't view it as racist, because if I have to view that as racist, I have to view Resident Evil 4 as racist, Resident Evil 6 as racist. Hell, even the opening of Resident Evil 2, uh, the classic 1998 game of Resident Evil 2. I'm like, um, when what's her name? Claire gets the gun. The monster that tries to attack her from the back, I think is like he is dark skinned. I'm like, so they're zombies. Why does it matter if a zombie is of a particular skin color? There were Caucasian zombies there too. That's why I'm like, all you people focusing on this, people, really, this is what you guys are focusing on? It it makes no sense. Anyways, those are my 2 cents on this. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And as always, hit that like, subscribe, bell notification buttons. As I mentioned again and again, it is what I feel a combination of misunderstandings. And yet, I have asked some people about it here. They are on the centrist viewpoint just like me. That one group is trying to force diversity, it seems, like corporate level diversity, which is inorganic, and the other group are just, looking for talking points, for mostly clout and monetary purposes. I'm like, bro, just resolve this issue, because if you don't resolve this issue, everyone loses. If you do resolve this issue, everyone wins. Let me know what you thought in the comment section below. Hit that like, subscribe, bell notification buttons. It's your boy Tanveer Said, the Bengal Dragon, signing out.